phone to YouTube. I've just started doing it more recently. And the problem is it was set to vertical mode. So got a little crappy preview of tonight's live stream. Is I have to wait for an hour to get groceries. No big deal. You may notice, if you're a real familiar viewer with the channel, and you've seen me do these car live streams before, which suck, apologies in advance, you may notice that the car looks different. That's because I'm in my wife's car. Because my car, the battery went dead in it. So I was at work and the battery went out and I had to get it jumped and then switch out cars with my wife because I didn't want to be at work and have an emergency with the vehicle. So I gotta go sometime this week and buy a new battery and put it in my car, which I am not capable of doing. I mean, I probably could muddle through it, but I have a Dodge Journey and the battery is behind the front driver's side tire. I'd never seen anything like it, but I remember years ago I opened the hood, I'm like, where the heck is the battery? And I had to like search it online and I found out what was going on. Anyways, so I'll be driving here for a little. We'll talk while I'm driving, then I'll be parked for, what time is it? 12:15. So we'll have a 45-minute stream here. Talk about whatever. Obviously can't look at the chat or anything like that while I'm driving, but once I park, then I'll be able to engage in the chat more. So don't do it, buddy. Yeah, it's interesting. It's been an interesting week. I've worked a lot. Just real briefly, talk a little about one of the things, obviously doing home health care with adults with developmental disabilities, there's certain things that legally you can't talk about, and obviously morally I wouldn't want to talk about. Privacy is very important, so I'll never speak about specifics of, you know, names or illnesses or anything like that in specific. But I could say in general, a day like the Super Bowl, one of the things I think is interesting is it's weird how many cultural landmarks we have that a lot of the people that I work with are really into. And so we were really pumped to do tailgate parties and stuff like that for the Super Bowl. So it was a lot of fun. We switched back and forth from the Super Bowl because sometimes we didn't feel like watching the Super Bowl. We felt like watching Walker, Texas Ranger. So that'll happen. So I didn't get to watch much of the game, nor did I really care about the outcome or anything like that. But, you know, it's fun. So it's one of those things where old Rob was super into football, super into sports. You know, I've watched the Steelers now. I probably caught 9 or 10 games this year. That's it. My biggest thing used to be baseball. I used to love watching the terrible Pittsburgh Pirates every year, who had their losing streak was over 20 years at one point, which is pretty impressive. They had a losing streak that could legally drink alcohol. That's tough to do. So anyways, aside from that, we had a bunch of stuff that broke. So the last you heard of me was Thursday night last. I had an excellent interview with Ian Crossland from Tombcast Thursday, and then as I was doing the interview, I happened to notice I was going to just be done with politics and everything for the week because I had stuff going on Friday, and I happened to notice on Twitter really quick, someone mentioned about Biden having dementia, and that's why he wasn't charged. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I looked, and it's like, yeah, that's what the report says. And so I did do a stream Thursday night. So that was Thursday. It's been 7 days. 7 days since that report came out. And this is what I wanted to talk about. I'm almost to my destination, and then I'll be able to look at the chat. I was on panels. I debated people one-on-one. I debated streamers on X at least a dozen times about Trump's Mar-a-Lago raid and his classified documents case. Now, this was a huge deal, buddy. Oh, boy. I was on a panel with Connor where it was Dylan Burns and Brianna Wu and Destiny, and I debated Beatsco, and I've heard people like I'm Really Important talk about it. I'm not so sure I debated him specifically. Your normal cast of characters, your left-wing streamers, your Democrat streamers, and almost all of them I either personally debated or heard them on live streams discussing how criminal and dangerous it was for Trump to have these classified records. And when you debated them, the biggest piece of evidence they used, almost to a T, was always the same thing. Trump literally said on tape, this is secret, I should have declassified it, and then showed someone. That's admitting to a crime. Literally. Ha ha ha, it's an obvious crime. And I'd push back, I'd say, well, we don't know that he actually showed anyone any documents. He might have just pointed to them on the desk, and maybe he was just being a big man, was, talking it up, acting like a tough guy. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but that could be. No. Obvious evidence of a crime. My goodness, how could anyone defend that this wouldn't be a crime? How could they do it? It's so clearly a crime. He's on tape. Ha 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 ha. They said, that's it, open and shut case. Well, we're on day 7. If you heard any one of the people I mentioned, or pretty much any left-wing streamer, heard any of them talk about it? Any? But wait, it's really important. It's not just about a 2-tier system. It's not just about getting Trump, right? It's really important. Mishandling classified documents is super important. That could jeopardize national security. Oh man, if it's a crime, it's a crime. No one is above the law, right? It's super important. It's not about just getting Trump, right? Right, that's not what it's about. So odd then, Trump's not even president. Now the guy that is president, he did what Trump is accused of doing, except way worse. Let's look at the ways it's different. 1, Trump was accused on camera once, or on tape once. Thank you to whoever gave me the super chat. Thank you so much. Trump was on tape once saying, I could have declassified this. Biden's on multiple times. Trump didn't on tape read the classified material or hand the classified material to the writer. Biden did multiple times. Biden admitted to finding more classified documents in his basement on tape. And yet he's not charged. And all the people that said this is an obvious crime when it was Trump, now all of a sudden it's different. Now they'll just ignore the story until one person comes out with talking points, and then they'll just repeat those talking points and then move on to the next scandal. They're praying for another Trump indictment or another story on Trump's case right now. That's what they're doing. That's what's happening, because they can't defend it. They can't defend the double standard. And the reason they don't care. They know there's a double standard. See, when I debate Pisco over and over and over again, the reason I thought it was so important to show how full of it he is on the Jabal Bowman case is because they know there's a double standard. I've showed it to them many, many times. Many times. They could see the obvious double standard. But they pretend it's not there. And that's all they're doing is pretending. And so then they'll say something definitive like, oh, Trump admitting on tape that he was showing classified documents to someone. That's it, open and shut. Okay, the problem is, then when their guy does it, they have to look for a clever way to be like, well, it doesn't count. It doesn't count when my guy does it. It was horrible when Trump did it, but it doesn't count when my guy does it. That's totally different. It's a totally different situation. And so one of the things that benefits you when you're a lefty is because all of our institutions at least pay lip service to the causes of the left, they're able to control the narrative. And so the narrative switched to, but Joe Biden doesn't have dementia. And I'd been telling people all week on X and other places, like, that's not, I put a little short video up. That's not how you should have them reframe it. If Biden doesn't have dementia, then he's guilty. Charge him. And when they say Biden doesn't have dementia, and look, Trump misspeaks, okay, then Trump shouldn't be charged because he has dementia as well, right? That's the standard. That's what we're outlining, right? Isn't it funny how anytime there's a prosecutor that's going after Trump, they do make his life as difficult as possible. That, oh, we're not, every single motion they file in court, you can't have access to this, you can't do that, you can't make these arguments, you can't do that. And with anyone else, when it's Biden or Hillary or Obama, or it's, well, we don't know. We see that maybe a jurist somewhere would say, oh, but he's a sweet old man. Biden's a sweet old man. He's just like my grandpa. He doesn't know where he's at. It's okay. We'll let him off the hook. Is that nice? How the prosecutorial discretion, right? Is that beautiful? Does anyone think for a moment, if this exact scenario had happened under Trump, that they would have said, oh, it's just, no big deal. Maybe a jurist would think he's a polite old man. Of course not. Now, in his defense, Pisco did at least initially put a little comment out. It's like, yeah, this doesn't look good for Biden. Then when I directly responded, hey, man, you said Trump admitting on tape that he had classified material was like a nail in the coffin. What do you have to say about Biden? No response. So every day I've been tweeting out, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. No response from Destiny or Pisco or Dylan Burns or I'm Really Important or Brianna Wu or insert any lefty streamer. I haven't seen one. I'm not saying it couldn't have happened. Maybe they said something on camera that I missed. Maybe someone tweeted something out and I didn't see it. But I've looked. I haven't seen shit. It's whispers. Huh. Pisco, then when someone mentioned him, he responded, oh, I got to read the document. 7 days, still hasn't got around to reading it. Interesting. That's interesting. Did he read all the material surrounding Trump before he said, oh my God? See, when it's Trump, you can jump right in, both feet. So we'll give him time. How much time does he need? Till after the election? Is that what it'll be? I'm sure he'll put out, what he can't do, what none of them could do. Again, let me, for anyone who's watching, right? Because it's funny how people accuse me of whataboutism all the time. What I do isn't whataboutism, and I'll explain why. Because the target that I'm criticizing isn't Trump or Biden or Obama or Clinton. That's not who I'm interested in. I'm interested in the system itself and how it goes about things in a two-tiered way, because it has a favored side and wants that side to win. So it goes aggressively as possible, including breaking the law, going after the one guy, Trump and his people, and it goes as soft as possible, going after the people that are his opponents. That's what it does. That's the problem. So if that's my issue and I'm saying, someone says, look how they treated Trump, I'm like, yes, and look how that's different than how they treated everyone else. That's not whataboutism. But when I point this out and I say, okay, how is it this evidence of a two-tiered system? This is what all of these streamers I debated said about Trump on tape, saying he was showing classified documents to someone. Now all of a sudden it's crickets. And the few little responses you get are people going, oh, well, this doesn't let Trump off the hook. Oh, so you're saying what Trump did was worse and blah, blah, blah. That's whataboutism. If you say stealing candy from the store is a crime, and therefore your guy did it and he needs to be charged, and then a week later it turns out that your guy also stole candy, and I say, okay, your guy stole candy and he didn't get charged. They charged my guy, but not your guy. That's a two-tiered system. And your response is, but Trump. All of the claims that they're making that Trump did something far worse, it's all based on one premise, and the premise is that Trump didn't cooperate. But in reality, that's not what's going on. What's going on is that they initially decided almost day one to go after Trump for his records. They didn't go after Obama. They didn't go after W. Bush. They didn't go after Mike Pence. They didn't go after Al Gore. They didn't go after Bill Clinton. Just Trump, right out of the gate. Ah, what's that? What's in that box? We need your records. Biden's taking shit when he's senator. Biden doesn't hand stuff over when he's vice president. No problem. NARA wasn't looking for them. Be like if you're driving and every day the cops decide to pull over just black people every day. What's that? What's going on with your car? License, registration. What's this? Is that speedometer working? What's that? Your license plate's a little crooked. Blah, 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 blah. And then eventually that guy's like, dude, would you leave me the fuck alone every day? Oh, you're not cooperative. Not cooperative all of a sudden. I went through this on Twitter. Biden wasn't cooperative either. First, being cooperative afterwards isn't a reason to not charge someone, right? If you're accused of murder and you voluntarily turn yourself into the prison, do we say, well, he cooperated? He cooperated, so... No, of course not. Cooperation is to what's to be expected. If they want to make this argument that Trump didn't cooperate, which is garbage, then they could charge him with obstruction of justice. However, the underlying crime of the mishandling of classified documents, the facts aren't changed by whether or not he cooperated afterwards. That's number one. So saying that Biden shouldn't be charged because he cooperated is garbage. Number two, he did not cooperate. What he did was he appointed a special counsel to go after Donald Trump. That's what he did, because he realized that it benefited him politically. So they want to go after Trump for crimes that are committed by people all the time, like campaign finance violations, like mishandling of classified documents. And so they constantly make Trump's life hell. We demand you cooperate. We demand you do this. We demand you do that. Just like they did with the Russiagate investigation, which we'll get to here. Investigate, use FISA warrants, etc., unprecedented processes to go after the President of the United States, hoping that he'll be a dumbass like he is, and be like, eventually like, fuck all this, I don't have to listen, and then they say, oh, he's not cooperating, that's the crime. Let's do that with Biden. Let's give FISA warrants against Biden and all of his people, right? Let's start a special counsel. Let's leak to the press all the time. And then when Biden says, I don't like this, oh, you're not cooperating? That's not, are you threatening? Are you threatening to end the special counsel? Is that what you're doing? Oh, that's obstruction. See you, Ten Goat. Nice to see you. Biden took shit from when he was a senator. Biden's on tape in 2016 or 17 saying he had classified materials. Biden didn't hand those classified materials back. That's not cooperating. Going after your opponent and then realizing, uh-oh, it's going to come out that I did the very thing that I'm going after my opponent for. I'll get ahead of the story. Oh, yeah, and we also did what Trump's accused of doing. But now, 8 years later, now we'll be like, oh, our bad. This is how I put it. This is the analogy I would use. Imagine that a bunch of teenagers steal beer from a store. Like there's a group of 10 teenagers. And every weekend they go into this mom and pop store that sells six-pack. And they distract them and they steal the six-packs. Then 5 years later, one of those teenagers becomes mayor of the town. Then the next election, one of those other teenagers is running against him. And the mayor says, you stole beer. You did it. You're under arrest, buddy. This guy stole beer. You can't vote for him. He stole beer. He's a criminal. By the way, I stole beer as well, but I'm handing it back. I'm cooperating now. So, he's a dirty thief. 6 years later, I'm giving it back. So I'm cooperating. No crime here. I cooperated. That's not cooperating. That's covering your ass because you politicized the investigation to go after your opponent. And now the American people are going to find out you did exactly what you accused him of doing. It's absurd. Trump did cooperate. He let them into his home many times. What if, let's just say it right now. What if we find out that there's more classified documents that Biden has that he didn't hand over? Then what? Is that cooperation? Did the FBI serve a search warrant? No, they just politely walked through. Better serve a search warrant just to see, right? Let's get in there. Maybe if Trump wins, which he won't, but if Trump wins the president, let's do that. Let's serve a search warrant on Biden, all of his homes, just to make sure, right? By the way, Biden's ghost Trump stuff, as far as I know, there's no evidence that they wanted material back that they didn't get. Biden's ghostwriter deleted his conversations with Biden. Now, they were able to digitally put them back together, but claimed that they can't be certain that they got all of the material. So there was one guy on Twitter, I don't even remember his name, but he said he'll debate me on this double standard. So that's going to be Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I don't know the guy's name, but I said, sure, fine. So, should be fun. At least there's one person willing to talk about it. This is why it's so funny, why I always like getting people on record, by the way. Because there are literally no two situations in this world that are completely analogous. Imagine that I ask you to define what an apple is. And you say, this right here is an apple. And I say, right, but what is an apple? Like, what is it? Fruit? You know, it could be various colors. You know. Now this is an apple. And I say, okay, what about this? And I hold up another apple. They'll say, no, that's not an apple. And I say, why? And they're like, see how the stem's a little different? Well, right, the stem's a little different, but it's still not. No, it's not the same. Well, of course, it's not the same. That's why I asked you to define what an apple was. If you just say, you know, I don't even have anything in my car that'd be interesting. What's a tape dispenser? There's a tape dispenser. That's it. That's what it is. And then you hold up and you say, this is a tape. No, see, yours is green. Yours has green. Mine's blue and yellow. So that's not the same thing. Right. It's the same with these crimes. Well, what is it about this that makes it illegal? Oh, he was on tape talking about classified information with a writer, a journalist. Okay. Then when we see Biden do that, they're like, well, that's why they have to ignore it. They can't come up with a plausible reason. Whereas if you don't get them to admit that, this is what they'll do. They'll say, what Trump did was illegal. That's what's illegal, what Trump did. And then when you find out what Biden did, you go, well, Biden did. No, there's differences. There's differences. So what Biden did wasn't illegal. But what Trump did was illegal. Because they make post hoc justifications, after the fact justifications. They say, well, there's minute differences. And therefore, that's why we charge Trump and not Biden. That's why as soon as they charge Trump, you're like, why are they charging him? Remember, I did a big stream with Beats. I said, okay, when they raided Mar-a-Lago, I said, let's talk about what would justify this raid and what the outcome should be. Let's get it on record now. Because once you say this is the reasons they should have raided, okay, if we ever see another congressperson, politician, etc., that meets that criteria, you'll admit there's a double standard then, right? If they don't get raided, right? And of course they won't, but it just illustrates their double standard. What time is it? 12:30. Another thing that got brought up this week that I think, so just to wrap this up in a nice, neat bow, but Democrats at this point are all the people I baited are absolutely ignoring it. Absolutely ignoring. They thought that the classified document stuff when it's Trump was the biggest story in the world. When it's Biden. Oh, and here's another thing, right? So, like, I forget who it was. Who was it? Starts with an M. I don't remember. But someone, a pretty reasonable reporter that's been covering a lot of this corruption stuff, she tweeted out, there was always this weird email going back in like 2015, when Hunter Biden was on the board at Burisma, right when he first started to join. Most of Hunter Biden's emails that they got are like emails like me and you would send. Like, hey, what's up, man? Meeting, blah, 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 for coffee tomorrow. Stuff like that. Just like one or two sentences. But there was this really detailed email at one point he sent to Devin Archer saying that they were going to discuss this stuff with Burisma. And it was like 22 points of exactly geopolitically what to expect with sort of the gas industry and situation on the ground in Ukraine. It was like, that's weird. How did this guy come up with all this stuff on his own, seemingly? Unless he had access to some documents of what was being talked about in the government. Oh, it turns out some of the documents that left laying around on the basement or the garage floor of Biden's had to do with Ukraine and China. Biden goes on national TV and goes, it's not like Mar-a-Lago, like my stuff was secure. Dude, it was in a broken down cardboard box in your fucking garage. Mar-a-Lago at least has security. Your crackhead son, who was working at the behest of corrupt Ukrainian oligarchs and corrupt Chinese officials, had access to your fucking garage with this classified material. No one seems to be interested. And Biden, not only everyone's focused on the fact that he comes out and says, I don't have dementia, and then screws up who the president of Egypt and Mexico are. But he tells blatant lies. They didn't say I read classified material to my ghostwriter. Yes, they did. They didn't say I willfully retained it. Yes, they did. And our media doesn't give a shit. I saw like one guy on CNN like, actually, that's not true. Other than that, New York Times doing a story about it. He's got dementia, so you can't charge him, but not enough dementia that he shouldn't be the leader of our country. Where are all the people that wanted doctors' reports on Trump? Wanted to remove him with the 25th Amendment? Where are they now? And instead they're out there, they're telling you like, well, Mayor Pete Buttigieg says, and Kamala Harris and Karen Jean-Pierre, we can't keep up with Biden. We can't keep up with it. Apparently, behind closed doors, this guy's the most energetic, sharp as a whip person you could imagine. It's just, he has the bad luck of any time he's seen in public, he looks like a human vegetable. But trust us, that's not the accurate depiction of him. The shit you can't see where he's behind closed doors, oh, he's sharp as a tack, man. Just brilliant. Oh, okay, can you release the audio then of his interviews with with the investigator that said he looked like he had a real bad time with his memory? No, we can't do that. Can't do that. Okay, well, will you have him take a cognitive test with the doctor? No, we can't do that. Well, can he at least come talk to the American people in the Super Bowl like every president always does? No, he can't do that. But trust us. Trust us. The he's brilliant. We can't keep up with him. If they're willing to lie to you about that, what are they not willing to lie to you about? Economy's doing great. The border's secure. Ukraine's got this war won. We did the best we could with COVID. Trust us, it doesn't come from a lab. They're full of shit. Most secure election ever. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and by the way, I'll talk about all this at more length tonight. So for the 15 people watching, I apologize. It might seem like a repeat. I do plan on streaming tonight after Hank goes to bed. So maybe around 9, between 8 and 10, I'll start. Go for at least 2 hours. There's reporting coming out. Now, let's put some water on this. Michael Schellenberger, who is fantastic, he and along with Matt Tiabi were responsible with breaking the Twitter file story. He's reporting that he's heard from unnamed officials, and anytime something's unnamed officials, you have to be careful, that the Obama administration, prior to Crossfire Hurricane's the official investigation from the FBI into Trump-Russia collusion. Prior to that, and I've said this for years, I said, okay, let me see if I get this right. God, I haven't talked about this in so long. The official narrative is that Crossfire Hurricane opened in like June of 2016. So I said, fine, if that's the official narrative, if we find out that they were looking into Trump people before this, that proves that the intel community is lying. Because if, just for a refresher, in case, this is how we, the American people, found out largely about this investigation. There were leaks from people like Harry Reid and Mother Jones before the election. Then the election comes. What we heard was it was because there was a dossier alleging people in Trump's team, like Michael Cohen, his lawyer at the time, or like Carter Page, were being offered all this money and offered all this stuff. They were flying around the world, meeting with Russians, trying to attempt to collude and steal the election and get classified or to get dirt on Hillary Clinton. Then once it started to come out, wait a minute, Hillary Clinton's team paid for the Steele dossier. The Steele dossier looks like it's full of shit. Then it became, well, wait. That wasn't what was responsible for opening the investigation. The reason we started the investigation in the first place was because of this guy, George Papadopoulos. That's what we're told. Wasn't Carter Page, wasn't Michael Cohen, wasn't the Steele dossier, wasn't Paul Manafort. It was George Papadopoulos. So who was George Papadopoulos? George Papadopoulos is this low-level guy who's in, the campaign team of Trump's. I believe he was supposed to be working on foreign policy. Now, brief side note, Trump, because he was sort of an anti-establishment type figure, was having difficulty finding people to staff because all the people that normally do this stuff are people that are going to hate him. And if you don't think that's true, then go look at, for example, the State Department testifying against Trump in the impeachment. They repeatedly say things like, Alexander Vindman and all of these people, they say things like, our foreign policy. Trump was going against our foreign policy. The establishment, and that's what I talk about, these institutions, the Department of Justice, the FBI, the State Department, the IRS, all of these massive executive agencies that are responsible for so much of the corruption, they will exist long after Trump or Obama or Biden or whoever. That's the problem. They're who's really running things. So when Trump's trying to staff his campaign, he's basically got some relative unknowns, like your Carter Pages, like your George Papadopoulos. There's no evidence that I'm aware of that Papadopoulos ever even met Trump. I take that back. I assume he met him. That they had any discussion about policy or anything. Nonetheless, what we find out is, this is the official story, George Papadopoulos is drunk at a bar in Australia, and there's this Australian diplomat named Alexander Downer there. Alexander Downer, who's someone who is criticized for directing Australian taxpayer dollar to the Clinton Foundation. He's a friend of the Clintons. And so here he is having this discussion with George Papadopoulos, and Papadopoulos is drunk and says something to the effect of, hey, I talked to this Russian, and he said they got dirt on Hillary. And that was it. That's what the FBI used as their justification to launch a 3-4 year investigation into Trump's entire team. That was the inciting incident. And Inspector General Horowitz, Durham, all of them say, yeah, the way the FBI's rules and regulations are written, that's all it takes. Then you might ask, well, then why not a similar investigation into Eric Swalwell, who was banging a Chinese spy, or Dianne Feinstein, whose driver was a Chinese spy for 20 years, or any other litany of politicians, Joe Biden. Why not? You see, this is what they do. They set the rules up so that they could do whatever they want to the people they don't like and then say, but we choose not to do it. We're getting to that, Robert. We choose not to do it to the people we do like. So that's the official story. Now, what's being reported is, so if that wasn't the start of the investigation, then we've been lied to by the intel officials on record. Under oath, they've lied then. Because that's what we were told. That means that Mueller somehow didn't find it. The FBI never disclosed it. How is it? They did all these years-long investigation, and they just didn't know that actually they were spying in on and looking into Trump people before the George Papadopoulos situation. So now we get to Michael Schellenberger. And Schellenberger says that these officials said the Obama administration tapped our Five Eyes allies. Now, our Five Eyes is our intelligence sharing relationship with friendly countries. Amongst them would be the UK, Australia. So we share intelligence. We're on good terms. They called the Five Eyes arrangement. We tapped countries like the UK or Australia to bump 25, I believe, Trump officials. Now, what do they mean by bump? Basically, keep tabs on. Look into. Have people bump into them and look into them. Now, it would be illegal for the FBI. Not only is it immoral, I believe it's illegal for Obama, without evidence, to go after his political opponent and say, we're going to have our intel agencies spy on them, look into them, keep marks on them, keep tabs on them. But if you ask your allies, hey, we had no control. We just threw it out there. We heard a rumor. Now, brief aside, this rumor had been around since 2018, at least. I have writings on it. I'll show you tonight. I was writing about this because I was reading stories that said Biden reached out to our allied countries and was like, hey, if Trump wins, he might be an asset of Russia. Don't know. His team might be an asset of Russia. We don't know. So, hey, UK, just so you know, which is sabotaging the incoming administration, is what it's doing. And then Obama, and I was also writing about that at the same time, Obama also basically made it the policy to lift restrictions on the sharing of intel from various agencies. So in other words, it used to be, it was more stringent. If you're the CIA and you find intelligence about a U.S. domestic citizen that's a politician doing something, you didn't really share that with the other 18 intel agencies necessarily. Obama, knowing that they were looking into Trump, was like, yeah, go ahead and do that. And then mysteriously got leaked to the press. So you weren't able to be like, well, it was just these 3 guys working on that case that knew. It was, well, the entire intel. Now it's difficult to find who did those leaks. By the way, anybody been arrested for leaking to the press? To go after Trump? Oh, no? Oh. Interesting, huh? Mishandling classified documents, such an important deal. Unless you're leaking against President Trump, then there's nothing we could do. We just couldn't find it. Sorry. Not a big deal, right? Nope, no big deal. So these rumors have been circulating. What's different this time is Schellenberger actually has officials on the record providing details, saying exactly who was contacted and that it was 25 Trump officials that were being looked into. So I really recommend, Colin Rugg had been talking about this. I think Jesse Waters talked about it last night. Of course, you could look up Michael Schellenberger on X and you could read his piece. The New York Post had a story about this. What none of them have talked about, though, is what I find to be always the most interesting character in the entire Trump-Russia collusion scenario. And that character is a man by the name of Joseph Mifsud. So let's take a step back. What's being accused? The accusation is the Obama administration reached out to our allies. We'll just say like the UK, to keep it simple. Reached out to the Five Eyes like the UK and said, can you these Trump officials? Can you bump into them? Can you look into them? What was the official start of the Russia investigation? Well, I already told you, it was George Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos talking to Alexander Downer. How did Papadopoulos get to that point, though? So he's the central figure. He's what starts the entire ball rolling on the Trump-Russia investigation. Okay? Here's the story. Papadopoulos is in Europe, and he runs into this Maltese professor by the name of Joseph Mifsud. Now, he taught at all these universities. I think I'll have to look up the details specifically tonight. University of Cairo, I think, all these other universities that allegedly had connections to Western intelligence. So professors and stuff that were working with the CIA or MI5 or MI6. Now, none of Mifsud's friends remotely ever thought that he was a Russian spy. In fact, they thought, if anything, he was working with U.S. intelligence. Nonetheless, this Mifsud character runs into George Papadopoulos and they have dinner. And he says, George, I'd like to introduce you to some friends, these people, and they have some information that perhaps the Trump campaign would like about his opponent. I don't know if he's specific. I think he did say that they were Russian. So these Russians, they have some... Now that in its own right's not illegal. For example, let's say I receive dirt from a Russian diplomat tomorrow about Joe Biden. It would be illegal if I blackmail Joe Biden. It would be illegal if I say, thank you, if I win the presidency, I'll give you favors. But what if I said, thank you very much, and took it to the FBI? Hey, I just got evidence of a crime. A man approached me with this. Is that illegal for me to have done that? I don't think so. If it is, then Hillary's team's in a lot of shit. Because they're reaching out to Russians and Ukrainians for dirt on Trump. But that's the character. Then Papadopoulos would meet this Russian guy, and the Russian guy said, we have compromising information on Hillary Clinton. We have emails and things like that. Then later, when the Hillary server was hacked, people said, aha, that must be it. That's what that Russian was talking about. Well, no, he didn't say we hacked the DNC server or we hacked Hillary's emails. If you were knowing that she had a private server, which was all through the news, don't you think if you were bluffing, you would say, yeah, we got access to her server. We have emails. Doesn't prove shit. But nonetheless, that was what they went with. So the central figure that started this ball rolling was Joseph Mifsud. This dude who's been teaching, who looked like a normal Western dude, is actually this high-level spy. I did not eat the server. I'm on a diet. I'm only eating fast food. So Mifsud, central guy, he is literally the person that the government of Russia, according to the FBI, according to Mueller, this is the person working at the behest of the government of Russia, who was the point person who initially infiltrated the Trump campaign. The first guy, the most important cog in the whole machine that got the ball rolling. Now the FBI, or Mueller's team, I'm a little sketchy on the details, I think Mueller's team interviewed Joseph Mifsud twice. And the FBI says he lied to us. And yet, would it shock you to know that Mueller's team declined to press any charges whatsoever against Joseph Mifsud? They didn't charge him for being the Russian spy that masterminded this whole thing. They didn't charge him for lying to the FBI or to investigators. Now you might say, hold on. I thought that it was very important to charge everyone and their mother that in the Mueller team that lied to investigators or that were somehow connected to Russians that were trying to interfere in our elections. Let's look at the ones connected to Russians. Well, they charged 12 people from the Internet Research Agency. And what did these people do that was so bad? Well, they spent about $100,000 on ads on Pokemon Go and Facebook. Mueller thought it was worth charging them, but not the actual spy. Not the actual spy that started it all. Nope, just these anonymous Twitter or Facebook, Pokemon Go posters. They go after the spy that started off. For some reason, he gets left off the hook. No charges. Okay, what about lying to law enforcement? Well, they charge Papadopoulos. That's what they charged him for. And they charge Manafort. And they charge Roger Stone. And they charge Cohen. And they charged Mike Flynn. Mike Flynn, a decorated veteran. He didn't even lie. We've gone through the Flynn 302. He said, I don't recall that could have happened. That was enough to charge him. A decorated veteran. Doesn't matter what your past is, sir. Doesn't matter that you were a patriot. Doesn't matter. Lying to the FBI is a crime. But not this Russian spy. Not him. He could lie to the FBI and they're like, that's fine. Why? Why would they intentionally let the guy who got the ball rolling, the head spy, why would they let him off the hook? By the way, I believe he's gone into hiding. I don't know if Mifsud's been seen for years. Last I checked, 2020, no one had seen the guy. Huh. Why? Well, now look at it in the context of Schellenberger's reporting. What if the Obama administration did reach out to the UK and said, hey, can you look into all these Trump officials? And what if they sent someone, and let's say that someone's name hypothetically was, I don't know, Joseph Mifsud. What if he wasn't working for the Russians? What if he was working for Western intelligence? It'd be real hard to arrest him then, wouldn't it? Which has been what I and many others have assumed or conjectured was the case for years now. The reason that Mifsud got off the hook was because they know that Mifsud wasn't a Russian. That's why they just let him off the hook and he disappeared. Because Mifsud was engaged in entrapping Trump. For a moment, assume that I'm right. Assume that that Obama reached out to the UK and the UK sends Joseph Mifsud. And Joe says, hey, I want you to meet this guy. He's Russian. He's got dirt on Hillary. Papadopoulos goes, sure. So he meets the guy, and then nothing comes of it. In fact, they even have it on record that Papadopoulos brought this up to Manafort in the campaign, and they were like, yeah, don't touch that. Stay the fuck away from any of that shenanigans. And that was it. That was as far as it ever went. That was still enough for the predicate to investigate Trump's team, which led to everything we've seen for the past 8 years. If that was Obama reaching out to the UK and the UK intentionally sending that guy, that means that they concocted the entire story. The entire story. The entire predicate for investigating Trump's team for Russia collusion would have been started falsely by entrapment. Papadopoulos didn't even do anything wrong. He just hears from a guy, we got dirt. And then he tells another guy, hey, I heard they have dirt. And that's it. That's justification. That leads to FISA warrants to spy on Trump's team. Well, we can't have that coming out, can we? So what are the likely scenarios? What are the two scenarios? Well, either Mifsud was working for Western intelligence or he wasn't. I guess I could come up 3 scenarios. 1, Obama reached out to Western intelligence to like the UK. And then they sent Mifsud. I guess 4. Second, Obama reached out and they didn't send Mifsud. They didn't do anything. That's still bad for Obama. But third is that Obama reached out. They did. Oh, Obama reached out. Obama didn't reach out, but the West sent it. So you got Obama reached out and either Mifsud's UK intelligence or he's not, or Obama didn't reach out and Mifsud's UK intelligence or he's not. Any of those scenarios, other than Obama didn't reach out and Mifsud's not Western intelligence, is horribly corrupt. I talk about this all the time. There are certain events that are so seminal to the authoritarianism that we see in the establishment that they can't be questioned. They'll censor you. They'll attack you. They'll do whatever they can. You have to believe it. 2016 is the most secure election ever. Have to believe it. Because the whole house of cards falls apart. 2020 most secure. The whole house of cards falls down. January 6th was an insurrection. Whole house of cards falls down. COVID. The United States had nothing to do with COVID. It didn't come from a lab. Whole house of cards falls down. September 11th. Can't make any questions about it. The whole house of cards falls down. These events happen, which allows them to have a reaction to usher in authoritarianism that's almost always worse for you and your liberty. And so therefore you can't question the inciting incident. It becomes a matter of religion. You can't question it. The Trump-Russia collusion investigation is one of those. The inciting incident of that, you can't question. You have to accept that Hillary's server and the DNC server was hacked by Russia. You have to. You can't question it. You can't say, well, wait a minute. If that's the case, why didn't the FBI get the server and look at it themselves? Nope, can't question that. You can't say, why didn't the Democrats insist on the FBI taking the server? Can't question that. The investigation had to be legitimate. Even when you find out, and they rest on these laurels, when you say they illegally got FISA warrants to spy on Trump's team, they say, well, but remember we went back about a month ago and we were watching the testimony of the IG Horowitz. And the Democrats just kept repeating the same talking points. Russia did attack our elections, right? Yeah, I guess and the investigation was legitimate to open it, right? Yeah. So who gives a fuck? And that's exactly what Durham's saying in his report. Durham's like, yeah, okay, maybe there's enough here to start a low-level investigation, not to start fucking spying Trump's team, which is what they did. The bar is so low to look into something, sure. But the tools you use to look in, you don't jump into FISA warrants. That's right, David. The mainstream media is always on the same side on these issues. Yep. If Obama's team got the ball rolling, entrapped Papadopoulos, and then the person who reported it was Hillary Clinton's ally, Alexander Downer, the entire thing's a lie. Now, where does this binder come in? The allegation is that there is a binder of information that Trump declassified that proves Obama reached out to the Five Eyes allies and asked them to look into Trump's team before the start of the Trump-Russia investigation. That's the allegation. And then the allegation further goes, the reason that the National Records Archive and the FBI were so insistent on raiding Trump and from the get-go saying we demand all these documents back was because they knew that he had this binder that showed their guilt. And so they needed to get it back by any means necessary, which led to... Now, that could be true, but I'll be honest, I'm skeptical. I'm just going to be honest about that. If Trump had this binder, why didn't he release it? Now, it could be because Trump's an idiot, because Trump's trusting these bad people around him. I was showing evidence. Trust me, everything I'm saying here, I was talking about in 2018, 2019, 2020, and I'm doing video after video like, Trump, why won't you declassify this stuff? Why won't you do it? And I think it's because he's sitting there with someone like Bill Barr that's saying, oh, Mr. Trump, it'll look political. We have to follow norms. Trust us. All of this information will come out. It will all come out. Trust us. It'll come out. Just trust us, but you got to let the process go. And then he never got around to it. He believed them till the bitter end. January 6th happened. They basically tell him, now you're going to shut your mouth and we're going to impeach and convict you. Go away. So it's possible that he has this binder. If he has this binder, the big story is still the corruption. That's obviously way up here, the highest story. But there's also a little minor story that needs to come out of it. Why are you so fucking stupid, Trump? If you had this information, why didn't you release it before the 2020 election? But what people are saying is that in his classified documents hearing, that's what a lot of these fights behind the scene are about, that Trump's basically like, I'm going to present evidence that this is what they were really after, these documents showing their corruption. We'll see. Whether or not this binder exists is a separate issue from whether or not Obama made this order. In other words, Obama could have reached out to the Five Eyes allies and said, spy on Trump's team, and there's not a binder of information showing that. That doesn't mean what Obama did was not crooked, criminal. What scenario is more likely, though? That Joseph Mitchell is a Russian that literally was the guy who was the point person for starting the entire Russia collusion stuff, and the FBI just said, yeah, fuck it, we're not going to charge him. We're charging everyone else with the pulse, but we won't charge this Russian spy. Or that the reason they didn't charge him was because actually he wasn't a Russian spy. And the FBI knows that's bullshit. That's always been the most likely scenario. But we can't talk to Joseph Mitchell because he's incognito. He's hiding. So, all right. I should be streaming around 8 or 9 p.m. tonight. Whenever Hank falls asleep, I'll go upstairs and stream. We'll be recovering a lot of this information, plus anything else. Who knows? Last Wednesday, Pisco called in and we were arguing until 2 in the morning. So maybe we'll get a call in or something like that. But it should be a fun stream. I'm going to go. I'm in the parking lot now. I got to go pick up groceries, and then I'm going to go home and have Valentine's dinner with my wife. I believe we're making steaks and potatoes tonight. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. So thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate talking to you. As always, have a good one.